Okay. Alright, so we finally have reached the last question that we've been asked so far. And so,
We're recording again?
Yeah, we're recording.
Okay.
So, the last question that we've gotten asked today is Bane, who says, how do you manage to have so many OCs and keep them all in check? Is it hard or easy for you? And do you have any tips for anyone who has numerous characters? Try to imagine having 64 kids in the house. You can't really focus on it. 64 cats, 64 kids, 64 anything. A lot of the times during, it's hard. It really is hard.
It's hard to keep.
Easy.
Mainly, the main thing for me is it's hard to keep track of where everyone is located.
Yeah.
I like to scroll back up through RP and find out where somebody is. But when it comes to actually keeping track of character and personality, I have no problem with it.
Yeah. When we know, once we associate with a name, boom, we know everything about them. We know their back history. We know where to go with them. We know where they were. Let's go. In general, we normally have to keep a list of our characters. I have an actual book that has a list of all of our characters in my desk at work. I have it in my desk in my, I have it in a book in my messenger bag. I have notepads full of it. Hannah has the same thing. And we have a hard time, like, if somebody asks us what are all the E-punks, we could probably name off, but there's always going to be one we keep forgetting.
Yours is always Tolstoy or Dickens.
Or Dickens,
and for some reason mine is either Dickens or Christian.
Yeah, and I mean, now, if we make them, we normally can remember them. Like, if they're small, like Eaton's crew. I just go off 2 by 2 by 2. Yeah. You have Bedden and Jarek, Crawford and Vic, Dabney and Ward. Boom, you're done. But others, we have a harder time.
I usually go in order and figure out mine.
Yeah. Now, granted, it's not so hard to keep track of the older ones. It's the newer ones that we tend to have problems with.
We tend to forget,
because we have such a large group. When we're bringing in new ones, it's so easy to forget that we have certain... Yeah, like in the college punks, we tend to forget Berkeley and Emory a lot at first. Yeah. And it isn't until we actually develop a story for them.
It's when they start having relationships or start having friendships with people that it works. That you start seeing things like with their character developing more. Berkeley, really, I haven't got a chance to develop his character a lot because I don't really have anybody...
Same with,
I haven't had him really talk to a lot of your crew yet. I actually intend for him to talk to Ward more because they're both old guys.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't really have a backstory for Ward.
Yeah, so that will work. I mean, it's kind of awesome how that kind of fits together. That, and I mean, I don't want to say this on your sketchbook,
but I mean, it is hard and it's also easy. By names, it's very easy. By groups, it's even easier. Individually, though, like when we're in the middle of a role play, we've forgotten so many characters so many times, and sometimes we do intentionally push away some of the characters and develop more of the well-known characters. Let's see. For a while there, we had it going where it was just Jarek and Brad.
Yeah, for the longest time. We just kind of followed on. There were some other little side stories with other characters going on, but mostly it was Jarek and Brad. And
the camera kind of focused on them.
Investigating Jarek's back history and Jarek's personality to sort of flesh him out more and to give Brad something to do.
And then, I mean, from there it turned... Yeah, and I mean...
You did not hear that.
I did not hear that. I just kind of nodded and said, yeah. What did you say?
I said, and someone to do. Oh
yeah. But anyway.
I apologize, guys.
But I mean, anyway, we have it. Jokes. Like, from Brad and Jarek, it kind of meshed over into, like, Bedden and Christian. And there have been some characters, like, for a long time, it was, like, Lexington and Nelson, and then we jumped over to Anton and Emery. And we kind of focused on a certain group.
Wagner and Dabney. It's usually a pairing, but sometimes it's not a pairing. Sometimes it's just friends hanging out.
And then sometimes we do throw in events.
Berkeley and Emery, and they're following Dart and Princeton. Stuff like that,
And then it kind of jumps over to Princeton and Dart. And then sometimes we just branch off entirely and say, here's a Chimera attack, go.
Or this is happening on the
opposite side of the planet.
This is what's going on with these characters because we have characters that are not in the story,
same place.
that are not in the same place. They're way off over here.
We have to build their story. We got to build their characters. So we have to roll
in the course, if you were reading this as a comic or if you were reading this as a book, it would be a cutaway scene, or in a movie, it would be a cutaway scene to another thing that's happening at the same time in another place. Yeah. So if it's a comic, it would just cut to meanwhile. Here,
but
meanwhile in Germany.
But in terms of RagNBone, because we have so many characters, we're going to be jumping a lot. So to make it easier, we wanted to have a certain flow. We're going to start off with a certain group, and from there, based on where the conversation goes, like if it kind of leads more towards where Brad is talking to 9, it probably is going to branch off to where 9 finally meets up with 5 again, and then 5's going to probably branch off with Dickens. We're going to have all the side stories, but we're going to make the flow easier, so it's not like we're jumping everywhere and then you're like, oh God, what's going on? But
yeah, we're not going to make it confusing to you guys when we do it as the actual comic.
Yeah, whereas if you were to read our strict roleplay, if you were to read it, if we posted it, you guys couldn't keep up. I really don't.
I really don't think you could, because we'll be talking like, say we'll be doing
we'll be
doing Brad and Jarek and Christian or somebody talking at the same time, and then we'll cut away to Lewis and Crawford talking, or Lewis and Crawford doing something dumb, and then we'll cut back like 10 minutes later to Brad and Jarek, because one of us will forget to have replied, or we just have been postponing.
And sometimes it'll get to the point where it's like I have 5 characters of mine that I'm role playing, so I'll post all their replies, post it, and then I'll wait for her reply and go. And depending on which story I'm interested in, I kind of go with those characters more than others.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just goes back and forth. We don't. It's not like one of us is leading it. That's one of the big things that I really hate about a lot of role plays. Somebody always tries to lead it, and we can't stand that. So what we do is
which is funny, because back when we were doing the Fosters one, you kind of let it.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because you didn't know really what to do.
So it worked.
And I was like, okay, well, let's go ahead and do this. And hell, I still kind of lead you around everywhere.
Yeah, well, you have the major plot points that occur, but it works, because honestly, my major plot points would derp everything up and be dumb. I know I don't write good stories. But,
what is the name for the customers that we have are deaf? The Sprint Reflex? Sprint...
Relay.
SprintRelay.com? Or is it sprint.com/relay?
I think it's sprint.com/relay. Hang on. Sorry, she's troubleshooting.
I have our work communicator at home, so because I'm the only one on the floor with the HTC Evo, so I'd normally try to keep my work up at all times. Or just
not load the page.
Yeah, that way
automatically be redirected. Oh, if you put that in, it'll automatically redirect you to where you have to go. So
so I mean, whenever people come to me asking about the Evo or something, I generally help them out. Let's see. What the hell is I talking about?
We were talking about...
So Brandon's original idea was to go to Walmart. So it works out.
It works out perfectly.
But, I mean, in general, like... It's not really... We try not to lead each other. Yeah. What we do is whatever just seems to be the more interesting story, whichever one we're replying to.
It's funny because a lot of times we're both interested in the same one.
Yeah. But which is really good. That's why we like role-playing with each other, because it makes sense. And it's just where the more the interesting story. Now, if there's something that she wants to get back to, she'll abruptly reply with it, and I'll have never remembered it, but I'll start replying back to it. Yeah. And it just kind of keeps going back and forth like that. We don't push it in any certain direction.
Now, if you want to go into keeping...
What? And trying to keep up with us, it's impossible. Because you've got 5 stories going on at once in 5 different areas. On top of this, we're talking in parentheses about work or drama or certain things. It's just at random.
Basically, the parentheses... My husband, back when he was still living with us, he took one look at the role play and said, so wait, what's in the parentheses is the real world. And I was like, yes, the real world is in parentheses. The RP is not in parentheses.
So we made this joke.
We had this whole joke about, you have to move outside of the parentheses and all of this derp stuff.
And we actually have, it's a really big inside joke, because I actually have an original world that I created, and I can never figure out a name for the planet. So now the planet's called parentheses, because it's pretty much the real world. And in RagNBone is actually an inside joke, because Beden's design on his ears, he actually has 2 bracket parentheses on his ears. Yeah. So it kind of makes you think, okay, this guy's the one that's making sense. We're going to listen to him. And
but when it comes to the actual keeping your character separate and keeping the personality separate, I actually want to go into that a little bit, because I have a very wide range of characters.
Oh God, do you ever?
Because, I mean, Rouse has a wide range of characters too. She does. We both have wide ranges of personality.
But you have more background history family-wise than I do.
Yeah, because mine are a lot of family-oriented feelings. So, like, and like you have characters that
because I'm adopted. I don't have a family.
They don't have ages per se, but I have age ranges for how I feel that they would react. So, Wagner, for example, is, a man that would be in his 50s or so. And
did you really just puke again?
Did she?
I guess not. She was just staring at something.
Okay. Well, you have, like, Wagner, who's in his, like, if he was a person, he'd be in his 50s. You have, Poe, who, if she was a person, would be, like, 6 or 7 years old. And you have, Brad, who's, like, in his 20s, and 20s or 40s. I mean, I range across the board. So, the way that works as far as keeping them apart is, I have known people in these age ranges and how they act, and these characters have certain character traits that I associate with them and only them. I know that seems really, really kind of bizarre considering how many are there. But Wagner, I associate him with being what?
I need toilet paper.
Nice, thanks. Thanks for interrupting. Hang on a second, guys. She's being dumb.
And I think we need to give her some Pepto-Bismol because she is kind of like really sick. We'll be back momentarily. Give us a second.
Technical difficulties.
You should have put on like intermission music whenever we did this shit.
We have to cue up intermission music. That takes a long time.
This is true. Dankeschön.
Anyway, like Wagner, I associate him with being a little uptight. Not a lot, but enough. I associate him with being old, kind of set in his ways, kind of, how do I portray Wagner? He can be a real jackass if he's around other guys. But when he's around women or children, he's nicer because they do have a very big... The Franz punks, as a whole, group will have certain things that connect with them. And then individually they have certain things that connect with them. So, as a whole, the Franz punks are polite. They're a bit religious, so they all have a religious backstory. And then individually they have personalities. So, Anton and Elsa are very theatrical. I do have a lot of theatrical punks and very presentation-based punks. But the thing is that they all have different ways of being, presenters and stuff. Anton, Elsa, think of old school comedies, and think of like Abbott and Costello, Gene Kelly, Charlie Chaplin. They're old school comedy and very Barnum Bailey circus kind of presentation wise for Anton.
Oh, there's a sucker born
every minute. And then you have Carol, who's also very presentational, but Carol can't speak. Carol can only speak in quotes and sing. So she's presentational, but it's mostly in pantomime. And Lewis actually has the same thing because when he couldn't speak, he pantomimed a lot. So he actually has that a lot in the beginning of the comic. But when he starts to be able to speak more, he becomes a little bit louder. Oh, I say a little. But being able to keep them separated is just because of the fact that they're all so different from one another, even though they have similar traits.
Can you do me a favor?
What?
Can you cut up half of this and put it in milk for her?
I can try. I don't know if she'll take it.
Well, it's like she did earlier. But, yeah, while she's doing that, everything's it's kind of like keeping track of all your family members. It really is. Just in general, you kind of just focus on the people that you want to focus on, and then whenever another family member visits, start talking about them.
Well, it's how to keep them, within character.
Yeah, and I mean... No, she's not.
No, she's not?
No, how do you keep them in check? How do you manage?
There you go.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about. God, she can't even read the question.
Similar.
But it is similar. It is similar.
I'm not sure.
Now, for anybody who has numerous characters, like we said, like we do with RagNBone, focus on the stories that you are comfortable with. Don't really kind of branch out and force a story into play unless you want something to happen. There have been times, like in our fic, like the one night that I had a dream about crucifying one. I had no idea. The dreams are very sporadic, and I just see images, and from there I have to build the rest of it. I knew I wanted it in the comic, but I didn't know where it was going to come up. It didn't come up for a long time after I presented the idea to her. But by the time it did come up, we had a backstory, and we knew exactly where we wanted to take this. So we kind of ran from there. And, I mean, there have been times in RagNBone where we're going to forget. We forget 7, we forget the twins, we forget 2 a lot of the times. Sometimes 6 and Carol kind of disperse.
We plan on fixing that when we actually do the comic. It's just that...
Yeah, it's just that there are certain storylines we really want to push with.
2 has been hard for me to characterize for 1, which is really bizarre, because I thought I would have no problem with 2.